Okay, we've done our basic JavaFX pane. So you'll see that up until now we've done the following. We did our grid pane like this. We said grid pane and format my grid pane, and then put my grid pane on the scene, and then put the scene on the stage, and then put the title on the stage, and then show the stage. Okay, so this is what we've done up to now. I've shown you how to format the grid pane, but now what we're going to do is we're going to put stuff onto the grid pane, because up until now my grid pane is empty, and of course it's no point having an empty grid pane or empty screen and show my end user an empty screen. They're going to like think this is silly and close everything. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put stuff onto the grid pane. Now we've got different elements that we can put on the grid pane. A text field, a text. Now text is just like a label. It will just give me a something. Okay, it will give me any text message. And then text field will be an input box into which I can type something. And field, a password field is also an empty box into which I can type anything, but then when I type it, the computer will turn it into round buttons, so I can't read what has been typed. So like we use it for password. And then buttons, you know what a button is. It's just a submit or a clear or a submit or an entry button or whatever it is. So normally we've got submit. So that would be button. That is a button. So these are different nodes. I call them nodes. And I want to put them onto my grid pane. And now the first thing is I've got to declare all these variables, and with the data type or the type of element it's going to be. I call these element nodes. Okay, so now I'm going to create the nodes and I'm going to add them to the grid pane. So I've created here a create stuff method and an add stuff method. The one will create the buttons and all the elements that I want to, all the nodes I want to put onto my grid pane, and the other one will add them to the grid pane. And then I'm going to have in my main, I will launch my start, and here's my start. Okay, and what I want to do in the start is I want to run my create stuff method, and I want to run the add stuff method. So this will create variables, and now I'm going to put those variables onto my grid pane, and I get the grid pane with all the stuff back on, and then I put that onto the grid pane. So now I'm going to show you all about these things. So let me just quickly run this code that you can see what we're trying to do. So when I run it, let's see what's going to happen. And I just got to wait that my computer does anything. Okay, so let's sit and wait. Oh, wow, it's done something. Okay, so here, this is a text field, member register, that words, the display. Okay, so let's just see. Can you see? I've got text. Here, that heading there is my member register, and then first name and last name. These are my text fields. Okay, and then my input box, that text field input box is this white thing here. And then the password field is the second box here. So if I type here, I type my name. So my name is John, and my password, I type my password, and I see it in dots because it's a password field. And then I've got two buttons, register and clear. You see, that's what I'm trying to do here. There's my two buttons, my register and clear. So I've created them as empty fields. I'm just going to close. So that is what I'm trying to create there. I've created text, which is just simply giving me a message on the screen. Text field, which is input, which is the input box. This is a different type of input box. It makes the letters into round button, bubbles. And then here, this is a normal button that I can click, a click button. And here I created them, and there is where I give them values. Okay, so I do that into a method. So I just put them into a different method, because if we're using this as a template, then it means that later on I can put other stuff. I can do more in this method. Okay, so here I've given all my text fields. These are my three text fields, my texts. And they get values, and then I don't give a value to my input boxes because somebody's going to type into it. My end user must give it something. And here I've got my clear, my register and my clear. So these are the two words that display on these two buttons. So it's a button, the data type is button, its name is register, and the tab type is a button, and here I call it clear is the name of the button. And now I'm going to add them. So that is my create stuff. So you see, I create my variables outside all my methods because I want to increase their scope, because I want to get hold of these variables right throughout all my methods. I want them to have a global scope within this class. So that is why I put them outside of the method, and then I put further information about all these nodes inside my method. And now when I close, so here I've got heading equals new text. So these are just creating these variables of that data type with initial parameter values in the brackets. So that is my create stuff method. And now add stuff, and it's going to add, it gets a grid pane. So my grid pane comes in as a input parameter, and I'm going to return the grid pane. And now I'm going to add to the grid pane. I add my heading, and I add the username, and I add the input box, and then I add the password and the password box, and then I add the register, clear, and the clear button. Okay, so I just want to show you what these parameters here, what they mean. It means in column 0, so my first column, in row, no, yeah, in row, what am I doing? Okay, so let's just do it like this. Okay, here it is. Sorry, it's column and then row. Column 0, in column 0 and in row 0, I've got a heading. Okay, so this is my row 0. So here is row 0. Okay, and there I've just got a heading, and it's in column. So my first number there is the column, and the second one is the row. So if I'm just going to run it, and it will, well, for that thing to appear, but then I can relate these numbers to the main. Okay, so let's just see if I can make it smaller. So I'm going to make it smaller. Remember, I gave it a minimum size. So let's see. Okay, now can you see member register is row 0. Then I've got first name, my username, first name is on row 1. So on row 1 I've got two things. I've got the username and the input box. Row 1. Okay, and the first name is column 0, and then so the first is column 0 and column 1. Okay, there you can see it's the first name is in column 0, but it's in row 1, and then the input box is in column 1 and row 1, and then the password, you can see the 2 on the second parameter for both my password and my password input box. I've got 2 rows. Okay, I've got this row here. You see, I've got this row here as my row 0, 1, 2. Here is my row 2, and then column 0 and column 1. It's confusing because we normally always work with a column and then a row parameters. It's always row column. This one time is column row. Okay, so it's column and then row. Here I've got column row, so row 2 with column 0 and column 1, and now I've got row 3. The 2 buttons are on row 3. So here is row 0, row 1, row 2, and row 3. So in row 3, I've got in column 0, I've got register, and in column 1, I've got clear. You see, that's how it works. So it's just to get your head around these zeros and ones and things that is specifying in the grid pattern. Where in the grid pattern am I adding this heading to? So I go grid pane.add heading. Okay, and where must the heading be? In this position. And grid pane add username. Okay, and where must it be? In this position. And it's always column and then row. It's always column and then row. Okay, and this is my row 1. This is row 1, and the other one, this is also row 1, etc. So So that is how you do this. And here then I return the grid pane with all its elements. So I take all these elements that I've created, or all the nodes that I've created, I add them all to the grid pane, and then I return the grid pane. And that's how it works.